All right, so today we're diving into some pretty fascinating stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Entries from Krishnamurti's personal notebook, written over just 7 months in 1961 and 1962.
Okay.
And it's like a window directly into his thoughts and experiences with consciousness itself.
Yeah.
So what are we hoping to find here?
Yeah. What are we looking for?
I think we're looking for the core themes that emerge from these very personal writings, and through them maybe get a glimpse into the mind of this incredibly influential figure.
Okay.
But before we jump in, I'm curious, what's your experience been with Krishnamurti's work so far?
Well, that's an important question because diving into Krishnamurti without any context can be like trying to read a foreign language.
Yeah.
He really had his own way of seeing the world.
Totally. For anyone listening who might be new to Krishnamurti, he was an Indian philosopher and speaker who seriously challenged conventional thinking.
Yeah.
Everything from organized religion to societal structures, he questioned it all.
He wasn't about surface-level tweaks either.
No.
Krishnamurti was all about a complete transformation of consciousness.
Yeah.
A revolution from the inside out.
Right.
And that's where these notebook entries get so interesting. It's like we're watching him work through these ideas on a deeply personal level.
Exactly. He was traveling a lot during this time, bouncing between Ojai, London, Switzerland, Italy, and back to India.
Wow.
And throughout it all, he was meticulously documenting these recurring phenomena, these heightened states of awareness.
Interesting.
It's clear he was searching for something beyond our everyday understanding of reality.
I see.
And speaking of phenomena, one thing that jumps out right away is this recurring experience of intense pressure and strain in his head, always coupled with this feeling of immense vastness. It's almost like his brain was being stretched to its limits.
That's fascinating, right?
It is.
But what's really striking is that he doesn't describe it as something he's experiencing passively.
Yeah.
He uses words like startlingly clear,
Right.
where color was painfully intense.
Wow.
Even comparing it to two great dynamos working at great speed.
Yeah.
This wasn't a feeling.
No.
It was simply there.
It definitely creates an image of a mind operating on an entirely different level.
Yeah.
He's describing something almost beyond comprehension. And then there's this theme that pops up constantly, the idea of destruction and creation.
Krishnamurti repeatedly emphasizes that real lasting change demands complete destruction of the old. Not just modification, not tweaking, but complete destruction.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, you want to build a new house. You can't just slap on a new coat of paint.
Right.
You got to tear the old one down to the foundation.
Wow.
He's talking about dismantling the conditioned self, the ego, all those limitations we build up over time.
It seems pretty radical.
Yeah.
But I get the feeling he's using destruction in a very specific way.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not about violence or negativity. It's more like clearing space.
Exactly. Think of it like this.
Okay.
To truly learn a new skill, you often have to unlearn old habits that are holding you back.
Yeah.
It's that same principle, but applied to our entire way of being.
Okay, so we've got this intense mental phenomenon and this concept of destruction as a prerequisite for creation.
Yeah.
And there's this one passage that really brings those two ideas together.
Okay.
He says, "There is only destruction and no change. For all change is a modified continuity of what has been.
Oh, okay.
All social economic revolutions are reactions.
Right.
A modified continuation of that, which has been, this change does not in any way destroy the roots of egocentric activities."
Right.
It's like he's saying true change has to go deeper than just rearranging the furniture.
Absolutely. And then he takes it further,
Okay.
connecting destruction directly to creation. It is this destruction that is creation.
Wow.
It's a paradox, right?
It is.
But I think what he's getting at is that only through a radical restrict, letting go of the old, the known, can something truly new, something unconditioned emerge. And it's not just an abstract idea.
Okay.
He brings it down to earth with a beautiful image from nature.
All right.
The strength and the beauty of a tender leaf is its vulnerability to destruction.
I love that image. It's like he's saying true strength isn't about rigidity or resistance. It's about being open, vulnerable, even fragile.
Right.
It makes me think about how we often try to protect ourselves from discomfort or pain.
Sure.
But maybe that's exactly what prevents us from experiencing real growth.
That's a really insightful connection.
Well, thanks.
And, this theme of letting go ties directly into another one of Krishnamurti's core beliefs, the need to move beyond thought.
Right. He believed that thought, which is always rooted in the past and our memories and experiences, is inherently limited and can't fully grasp the totality of existence.
It's like trying to understand the ocean by studying a single drop of water. Thought can only give us a fragmented picture. A limited perspective.
Oh, okay.
And Krishnamurti was very critical of anything that relied solely on thought. Organized religion, social revolutions, even self-improvement programs.
Right.
He argued that they might change outer forms, but they don't fundamentally alter consciousness.
So how do we move beyond thought?
Yeah, how do we do that?
He often describes this state of being that transcends thought and feeling.
Yeah.
But I feel like even he struggled to put it into words.
He absolutely did.
Yeah.
There's this one passage where he writes, it was uniquely alone, not isolated, but alone like a drop of rain, which holds all the waters of the earth.
Wow.
He's trying to point to a state of pure being, unburdened by the limitations of thought and language.
Right.
And as we go deeper into the notebook, we see him starting to use a new term to describe this even more profound state, otherness.
This otherness is really intriguing.
It is.
He mentions it in connection with feelings of benediction, sacredness, and immense power.
Now, when Krishnamurti uses a word like benediction, what do you think he means in this context?
I think in this context, benediction points to a sense of profound peace and blessing. A state of being touched by something beyond the ordinary.
And what's interesting is that he sometimes mentions other people present with him could sense this otherness, too.
Oh, really?
It suggests it wasn't just a subjective experience within his own mind.
That's a crucial detail.
It is.
It elevates this otherness beyond personal interpretation and hints at something more universal.
Precisely. And as we dig deeper into the notebook, we see how he grapples with articulating this otherness. It's intensely powerful and transformative, implacable and destructive.
Wow.
Yet also filled with tenderness and strength beyond measure. He even acknowledges the limits of language writing. All this may have lasted a minute or an hour. It seems to defy categorization, existing outside our normal ways of understanding time and experience.
It sounds like he's encountering something that fundamentally challenges our attempts to define and label it. It's almost as if he's saying, don't try to pin this down, just be open to it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like he's inviting us to step outside the familiar framework of thought and embark on a journey of discovery.
And that's a perfect segue into the next theme we wanted to explore, meditation and stillness. Krishnamurti believed meditation was absolutely essential for emptying the mind and opening oneself to this unknown. But he wasn't talking about traditional methods or achieving blissful states.
He was much more interested in self-knowing, that deep and honest awareness of one's own thoughts and conditioning. He was adamant that true meditation is about a radical dismantling of the structures that keep us trapped in our limited perceptions. Not about seeking a temporary escape. And his language around this is very strong. Even harsh sometimes. He talks about the need for absolute destruction of the old ways of thinking, the conditioned self.
So it's not about adding something new. It's about stripping away what's already there. Clearing the ground for something different to emerge. And this dismantling, this emptying seems to be what opens the door to the kind of love and beauty that Krishnamurti was talking about.
He saw love and beauty as inseparable from this state of emptiness, this freedom from the known. But his definition of love is far from conventional. He rejects ideas of romantic love or attachment, pointing towards a love that arises from a profound sense of interconnectedness, free from personal agendas and desires.
And his descriptions of beauty are so grounded in the everyday world. For instance, he simply writes, "The earth as ever was beautiful." He's not talking about grand spectacles. He's finding beauty in the simple, often overlooked details of existence.
It's a way of seeing that emerges from that state of emptiness,
right,
that freedom from the confines of the self.
Yeah.
It's almost as if by letting go of our preconceptions and attachments, we become capable of truly appreciating the beauty that's always present right here in each moment.
It's a powerful idea that by letting go, we actually open ourselves up to a deeper experience of both love and beauty. Yeah.
And this leads us to a topic that shows up frequently throughout the Notebook, death and the timeless. Krishnamurti contemplates death a lot.
Okay.
But not in a morbid way.
No.
It's more like he sees it as an integral part of life.
Yeah.
A doorway to a dimension beyond the constraints of time.
He even contrasts his view of death with all the conventional fears and beliefs surrounding it.
Okay.
He talks about living with an awareness of death, not shrinking away from it, but embracing it as a fundamental aspect of our existence.
Right.
He writes about death with such intensity and finality.
Wow.
It's almost like he's trying to shatter our denial to force us to confront the undeniable reality of our own mortality.
He describes living with the very essence of death and how it's fundamentally connected to life and love. It's a perspective that challenges us to see death not as an ending, but as a transition into something beyond our current understanding.
Right. Krishnamurti constantly stresses the importance of living fully in the present moment, free from the burdens of the past and anxieties about the future.
This idea ties directly to his philosophy of transcending thought, which is always tangled up in time. He's urging us to break free from the chains of our past conditioning and step into the vibrancy of the present moment.
It's like he's saying, wake up, stop sleepwalking through life, lost in memories and worries. The only reality is this present moment. And it's a gateway to something far greater than our limited minds can grasp.
And, you know, that sense of urgency, that call to awaken permeates all of Krishnamurti's writing.
It does.
It's not just a philosophy, it's a lived experience he's trying to share.
Exactly. And I think what makes these notebook entries so compelling is that we're not just getting a set of theories or beliefs. We're seeing a mind in motion, grappling with these profound ideas in a deeply personal way.
And in that grappling, he offers us not answers, but an invitation. I think it's helpful to remember that Krishnamurti wasn't handing down a dogma or a set of rules. He was inviting us to examine our own lives, to question our ingrained habits of thought.
You're so right. It's about that self-inquiry. That active engagement with the material. He wasn't interested in blind faith or intellectual agreement.
No.
He wanted us to get our hands dirty, so to speak.
Exactly. There's this passage where he says, we always look from outside within. From knowledge we proceed to further knowledge, always adding, and the very taking away is another addition. And our consciousness is made up of 1,000 remembrances and recognitions. It's like he's shining a light on how we construct our understanding of reality. How we build this fortress of past experiences and knowledge.
And then we mistake those walls for the world itself.
Exactly.
We think we're seeing clearly, but really we're just staring at our own reflection.
And he's saying true freedom lies in smashing those mirrors. Breaking through that illusion of the separate self. And experiencing reality directly without the filter of our preconceptions. But that raises a big question, doesn't it?
It does.
How do we actually do that? How do we break free from the grip of thought, from that conditioning that shapes our perceptions?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It is. It feels so ingrained, like it's just who we are.
That's where the practice of meditation becomes crucial. But remember, as we've talked about, it's not about mastering a technique or chasing after some blissful state. It's about cultivating radical self-awareness, that kind of ruthless honesty about our own thoughts and motivations.
And Krishnamurti doesn't sugarcoat that process.
No, he doesn't.
He talks about meditation being a storm destroying and cleansing. He talks about the need for a mind that's sensitive and alert, yet utterly quiet. It sounds intense, almost paradoxical.
It is intense. It requires a tremendous amount of energy and focus to confront those depths of our own minds. To dismantle those structures of the ego that we often cling to for security. And that's where the courage comes in. The willingness to face ourselves without flinching.
So it's less about relaxation and more about confronting those uncomfortable truths we usually try to avoid.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
And I think it's through that dismantling, that emptying, that a new kind of perception can emerge.
Okay.
A perception that's not bound by the limits of thought and language. It's in this emptiness, this stillness that Krishnamurti seems to have those encounters with otherness.
Right.
That reality that transcends the known.
But even then, he struggles to describe it right.
He does.
He says things like, it comes like a flash.
Yeah.
It takes seed, but doesn't germinate.
Right.
He's emphasizing its timeless, causeless nature.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a reality that can only be directly perceived, experienced, not analyzed or explained away.
Right.
And it's in those encounters with otherness, with this boundless reality, that a new kind of understanding dawns.
Right.
An understanding that's not based on knowledge or belief, but on direct perception, on a profound shift in consciousness.
So it's a knowing that comes from a different place altogether.
Yeah.
Beyond our usual ways of thinking and understanding.
Exactly. And this understanding becomes inseparable from love.
Okay.
From beauty. From that sense of interconnectedness that permeates all of existence.
Right.
That's what makes Krishnamurti's perspective so radical.
Yeah.
He's not presenting a philosophy detached from life.
Right.
He's weaving it all together.
So if we're connecting the dots here,
okay,
it seems like the path he's outlining involves this process of destruction, of dismantling our conditioned selves, which then allows for a deeper understanding of reality through direct experience, leading to a love and beauty that are rooted in interconnectedness. Yeah. It's a pretty profound journey.
It is profound. But it's not about becoming someone better or achieving some state of enlightenment.
No.
It's about uncovering the truth of who we already are. Shedding the layers of conditioning that obscure our true nature.
Yeah.
It's a process of remembering, not becoming.
And this ties back to what we were saying earlier about how we often mistake those mental constructs for reality itself. It's like we're walking around with a map that's completely outdated, clinging to those old routes even when they lead us in circles.
But what if we could throw away the map altogether?
Right.
What if we could learn to navigate by intuition?
Okay.
By direct perception.
Right.
That's the kind of freedom Krishnamurti is pointing to.
Yeah.
The freedom that comes from seeing clearly without those filters of the past.
But wouldn't that be terrifying? Letting go of everything we think we know.
Yeah.
Everything we thought defined us.
It can be, but it's also incredibly liberating.
Okay.
He writes about experiencing that immeasurable still vastness and how it is too immense for time to hold it and no space could contain it.
Wow.
It's a reminder that the most profound truths can't be grasped intellectually.
Right.
They can only be experienced, directly felt, known in the depths of our being.
That's a beautiful image of vastness that can't be contained by time or space. You know, as we go deeper into these notebook entries, what strikes me is how Krishnamurti constantly emphasizes the importance of self-deception.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's saying, don't just take things at face value.
Right.
Question everything, even your own motives.
It's that radical honesty he's always talking about. There's a passage that comes to mind.
Okay.
How easy it is to deceive oneself about almost everything, especially about deeper and more subtle demands and wishes.
Right.
To be utterly free of all such urges and demands is arduous. It's a call to really examine ourselves, to see those hidden agendas and desires that often drive our thoughts and actions.
Hey, it makes me think about all the times I've told myself I'm doing something for one reason, but deep down there's another motivation entirely.
Yeah.
Maybe it's ego, maybe it's a need for approval, whatever it is, it's often lurking beneath the surface.
It's so easy to get caught up in those subtle forms of self-deception.
Yeah.
And Krishnamurti was adamant that true freedom requires us to confront those shadows within ourselves.
Oh, okay.
To bring them into the light of awareness.
Right.
It's not about judging ourselves. But about seeing clearly without those comforting illusions.
And that ties into his rejection of the pursuit of perfection, doesn't it?
I think so.
He actually calls perfection an ugly thing, except in a machine. I remember reading that and thinking, wow, that's pretty bold.
He saw the pursuit of perfection as a trap. a way of perpetuating that illusion of the separate self.
Right.
The ego that's constantly striving, comparing, and seeking validation.
Okay.
It's like chasing a mirage. You think you're getting closer.
Yeah.
But it always remains just out of reach.
He even says,
Yeah.
each attempt at perfection leads only to greater confusion and sorrow,
Right.
which only gives greater impetus to be more perfect.
Right.
It's curious, we always want to be perfect in or with something. This gives the means for achievement.
Okay.
And the pleasure of achievement, of course, is vanity.
Right.
Pride in any form is brutal and leads to disaster.
Yeah.
It's a pretty powerful indictment of that relentless pursuit of self-improvement, isn't it?
It is. It points to how that striving for perfection
Right.
often stems from a sense of lack, a feeling that we're not good enough as we are.
Right.
And that kind of thinking only leads to more suffering, more separation.
So what's the alternative?
Yeah. What is it?
If we're not supposed to be striving for perfection, what are we aiming for?
I think Krishnamurti would say it's not about aiming for anything,
Okay.
but about letting go of that striving altogether. He talks about the beauty and strength of vulnerability.
Right.
He writes, "The flower is strong in its beauty as it can be forgotten,
Okay.
set aside or destroyed." It's like he's highlighting the power of surrender,
Right.
of letting go of that need to control, to defend, to prove ourselves.
It's a pretty radical shift in perspective.
It is.
We're so conditioned to believe that strength comes from being in control, from being invulnerable.
Right.
But he's suggesting that true strength lies in our willingness to be open, to be receptive, to embrace our imperfections.
Exactly. It's a way of being that's far more resilient than those rigid structures of the ego.
Right.
And it's in that state of openness of vulnerability that true love and compassion can flourish.
Because when we let go of that need to defend ourselves, to protect our image, we can actually see others more clearly, connect with them on a deeper level.
Exactly. And that brings us back to Krishnamurti's view of love.
Okay.
He talks about love being the essence of the movement of life, a force that's implacable, destructive, with a tenderness that the new alone knows.
Right.
It's a love that's not sentimental or possessive.
No.
It's a love that arises from a deep understanding of our interconnectedness.
It's a love that acknowledges our shared humanity, our shared vulnerability.
Right.
And that kind of love can be incredibly powerful, can't it?
It can. It has the power to heal, to transform.
Yeah.
To create a world that's based on understanding and compassion.
Right.
Rather than fear and separation.
Right.
And that vision of love is inextricably linked to that otherness that Krishnamurti keeps describing, that boundless reality that transcends our limited perceptions.
He calls it a sacred blessing, a life in which nothing could perish. It's a state of being that seems to defy description,
right?
But at the same time, it feels so familiar.
You know what you mean?
Like something we've always known deep down.
I think that's because it points to our true nature, that essence of who we are beneath all the layers of conditioning and self-deception.
Okay.
And that's what makes Krishnamurti's message so compelling.
Right.
He's not just offering us a set of beliefs.
Right.
He's pointing us back to our own direct experience.
Yeah.
Inviting us to discover that truth for ourselves.
And he acknowledges that language can only take us so far, right? There's that passage where he describes experiencing that immeasurable, still vastness.
Right.
And how it is too immense for time to hold it and no space could contain it. It's like he's saying words can never fully capture the immensity of what he's pointing to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ultimately, it's an experience, not a concept.
Right.
And that brings us back to the importance of meditation, of cultivating that inner stillness that allows us to access those deeper levels of awareness.
Because it's in that stillness, that emptiness, that we can begin to glimpse that otherness. Yeah. That boundless reality that transcends thought and language.
And that's the journey Krishnamurti is inviting us to embark on.
Right.
It's not about achieving some final goal or destination.
Right.
But about that ongoing process of discovery, of shedding those layers of conditioning, of awakening to the fullness of who we truly are.
It's a journey that requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to let go of everything we think we know.
Right.
But as Krishnamurti shows us through his own example, it's a journey that's filled with beauty, wonder, and the possibility of profound transformation.
So as we conclude our deep dive into these incredible notebook entries, we're left with a final thought-provoking question from Krishnamurti.
Okay, what is it?
What brings about fundamental mutation?
It's a question that invites us to continue our own exploration, to keep questioning, to keep digging deep, and to discover for ourselves what it takes to create lasting change, both within ourselves and in the world around us. And maybe, just maybe, in that process of inquiry and discovery, we'll stumble upon that otherness, that boundless reality that Krishnamurti dedicated his life to exploring.